Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. Now I know folks are feeling and experiencing a range of emotions right now. I get it. But we must accept the results of this election. While I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign.
So meanwhile, the Democratic blame game is in full swing, some of it public, some behind closed doors, some surrogates pointing the finger after the vice president's crushing loss.
It was basically, if anyone has seen Game of Thrones, it was a red wedding. It was a bloodbath. So everyone is in a state of shock.
You did say in an interview last night that you thought that Tim Walz was part of the problem.
I do. Well, I'm biased. I'm from Pennsylvania. I think it's one of several factors. I think there were several factors that led to this result, but I think definitely contributed to this.
Peter Doocy now reports from the White House, leading our coverage today. Got some questions for you in a moment. Peter, good morning. First of all to you, what do you have?
Good morning, Bill. The revered Democratic campaign consultant David Plouffe, who was brought in to Wilmington to try to help Harris seal the deal when she took over for Joe Biden, has deleted his account on X after appearing to blame Joe Biden for Harris's loss on Tuesday and for setting the vice president up to fail. Part of what he wrote is, "We dug out of a deep hole, but not enough. A devastating loss. Thanks for being in the arena, all of you." The sentiment with that and everything else around here from Harris loyalists has shifted from Joe Biden's legacy as a selfless patriot is cemented because he stepped aside to let Harris beat Trump, to Joe Biden was so unpopular his VP was doomed from the get-go. That is according to a report in Politico with this. "We ran the best campaign we could, considering Joe Biden was president," grumbled one Harris aide granted anonymity to speak freely. Joe Biden is the singular reason Kamala Harris and Democrats lost tonight. Exit polls don't reflect that Joe Biden was the singular reason that Harris lost. And some Democrats who did win this week are imploring their colleagues to drop the bitterness quickly or else.
One thing I don't think is constructive is to get into the blame game, blaming certain individuals for things that could have been done or should have been done or would have been done. None of that will help us rebuild for 2026 and 2028.
Kamala Harris can't just go off the grid because she is still the vice president for another 3 months. Her office today, though, is telling us she's going to have internal meetings and briefings with staff that are all closed press. So we do not expect to see her in the Rose Garden with President Biden in 2 hours, where he will explain what comes next with the transfer of power, and also hopefully a little bit more about this invitation that he extended to Donald Trump to come here to the White House at some point, just to scope out how things might have changed in the 4 years since he moved out.
Peter, the readout you gave all of us on that phone call yesterday was pretty interesting, magnanimous, I would even suggest, between the two men. Do you have anything more as to when Trump arrives there? When this might happen? And do you know the last time that Harris and Biden had a conversation?
The vice president and the president did talk on the phone at some point yesterday before she conceded. We don't know exactly what it was about, and we know that the Biden-Trump meeting is being ironed out. The date is being ironed out with their two staffs, but it's going to be really interesting to hear how President Biden threads the needle today about what comes next with this peaceful transfer of power, because that's not going to happen until January. And it's not like Joe Biden is just going to stop trying to implement his agenda. You've got Jen O'Malley Dillon from the campaign that just lost talking about how the work is about to begin to Trump-proof the administration. Joe Biden next week is going to head to South America. He's going to try to put his fingerprints on as many different things as possible before a president with a completely different worldview comes in and tries to undo it.
And I think it's important, Peter, so that people understand that just doesn't happen at the White House. That is a directive that goes out to all of the cabinet agencies. So, and we don't have enough reporters to cover all of that, but a lot of that to come. And many of those people also that work in the White House now are worried about their futures, looking for jobs.
Absolutely.
Peter Doocy, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I want to bring in Josh Holmes right now, host of the Ruthless podcast. And Josh, good morning to you. You know, it's times like these where you can't read long or deep enough. And there's so many pieces out there already starting to take shape. Holman Jenkins writes this in the Wall Street Journal. Just going to read a line or two. Working Americans, when they voted for Democrats, were the backbone of America. Saints of small-town virtue. When they didn't, they were garbage and deplorables. Now, Holman Jenkins, he captured really? Like the Trump move in 2016, early 2017, helped us understand a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, that line nails it again.
Really, really well said, and I think reflective of a whole bunch of people across this country who have felt totally overlooked by the Democratic Party, by the Biden administration, by Kamala Harris, and seeing somebody in President Trump that represented them and gave them a voice. And it happened in 2016. It happened again in 2024. And I think in addition to that, there are new coalitions that we're talking about, right? It's not just your sort of white working class that everybody talked about in 2016. You're talking about huge numbers of Hispanic voters. You're talking about big increases in African-American support of President Trump. Young people, Bill, I mean, it's an old maxim in American politics that Democrats have a codlock on 18 to 25. President Trump just won 18 to 25 across this country. That is really a wild coalition.
And Bernie Sanders tweeted this yesterday. He said, it should come as no great surprise that a Democratic Party, which has abandoned working class people, would find that the working class has abandoned them. And I think it's interesting because some Democrats might sit there and think, wow, maybe we should have gone with Bernie. But I don't think that working class people were saying we want the Bernie Sanders way of the world. They want a different way. They want opportunity. They don't want socialism.
Yeah, that's entirely right. Look, it has been clear for 4 long years that the American people do not like a progressive left way of governance. I mean, that's what the Biden administration implemented in their very first year. Every exit poll, even in the midterms where Republicans didn't fare as well, people said on the economy, yeah, we blamed Joe Biden. On immigration, yeah, we blamed Joe Biden. Now, ultimately, they didn't turn around and vote Republican, but they didn't love anything that this administration was doing from a policy perspective. But what Bernie Sanders and I think others are talking about is this condescending tone that Democrats use that it basically tells working class people around this country, like, don't worry, we know better for you. You can't think about these big things. We're here to help. And that has just been wholesale rejected in the biggest possible way on Tuesday.
Yeah, Jen O'Malley Dillon, we talked about this yesterday afternoon, this memo that came out. Letitia James, the NYAG here. Pretty strong in her language yesterday. She says in part, O'Malley Dillon says, number 3, guys, the work of protecting America from the impacts of a Trump presidency starts now. To some people, I think maybe that sounds like Resistance 2.0, perhaps. If you were flipping around the channels yesterday, you heard a lot of talk about racism and misogyny, talking about fear and anger won. What do I tell my daughter now? But as the morning rolled on, you heard more things like, why did Democrats embrace anti-Semitism? I mean, that was the way it was framed in this whole Gaza battle here. And why didn't they do anything about immigration or inflation? So some of them were starting to look at themselves and blame themselves. But I thought this comment was the most relevant. The progressive movement needs to end if we want to win again. Now, what do you think about that, Josh, in the examination postmortem?
Well, it's the underpinning of the modern Democratic Party is this sort of identity-based pitch to the American people that, you know, somehow you can't think for yourself and your destiny is entirely predetermined based on what it is that you look like. And so you saw an immediate reaction to how could this happen? Well, maybe Hispanic voters are racist. Maybe black men are sexist. I mean, this is really what they were saying. And it underscores they're not going to learn the right lessons out of this bill. No. Like, if that's where they're headed, it's going to be a real problem for them. I think if you look inward, look, the American people just told you that they wanted a mandate for President Trump to fix this economy, fix these borders, and maintain some order around the world. It would be a very good idea for the Democratic Party to go about the work of trying to help him fix all of that. Yeah. If they're going to do Resistance 2.0, they're going to find a really angry American public.
Claire Lehman of Quillette wrote a piece called Revenge of the Silent Male Voter, and based on her observations, that's worth looking at as well. And David Brooks, I think, is trying to finally say, guys, maybe we have a problem of our own. My last question to you is about the Senate and Senator Mitch McConnell. His last act is delivering a Republican majority with some great candidates that they recruited in order to run. I was surprised that Wisconsin went for Trump, but returned Tammy Baldwin to the Senate. On the Democratic side, Eric Hobbs ran a good race there. But what does it mean for President Trump that he will have this Republican majority going forward? I mean, he might be able to get a lot done.
Yeah, absolutely critical, right? It starts with all of your personnel. I mean, if they want to confirm cabinet secretaries, you better darn well be sure that you have a United States Senate. It was Mitch McConnell's lasting goal to try to ensure that he turned over a Republican majority to his successor. I think he raised somewhere north of $400 million and had a great partnership with Steve Daines over at the NRSC to recruit candidates who could compete and win this cycle. They didn't get everything on the map, but it's darn tough to beat a Senate Democratic incumbent, any incumbent in the Senate, and they went around. And I mean, the Pennsylvania in and of itself, that win in Ohio, very big win, could well pick up another one in Nevada, and obviously they have the one in West Virginia. They're going to have a majority here, and it's going to make life a lot easier for President Trump when he takes office.
Josh Holmes, it's been fun to have you along with us on this ride, and there's more to come. So keep us on speed dial, if you would. Thank you so much.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.